This meeting of the Southborough Master Plan Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner: by finding the meeting on Southborough's website, www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event we are unable to do so, despite Beth's efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Whew. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is to review, discuss, and possibly vote on any updates to goals or recommendations. Is there anything there?
Yeah, I may have some stuff for my chapter which I'm hopelessly behind on.
Ooh, I think you're breaking up, Sam.
Yeah, I may have a few tweaks. The chapter that I'm working on, I'm behind on it, so the combinator. Try changing audios here.
I think you're in a speaker.
Hey, Sarah, you want to mute everybody besides Sam and see if it's just him?
Let me try this. Is this working better now?
Yes.
I can.
Oh, it's good now. Sorry.
Okay. I was saying I may have a few tweaks based on the chapter that I'm working on, but I'm behind schedule on it. So reserve opportunity. Judith is giving me a stern look appropriately, but
So for goals and recommendations, Sam, or just on the draft itself?
there may be some stuff that goes into the goals and recommendations that I want to discuss with the group, but
I wonder if it's Julie. Volume or sound's got a feedback loop on it.
Yeah. Oh,
The box is highlighted when that better.
I
Start
muted
again.
myself and it went away, so I don't know.
I think that's because everyone was muted though. Try again.
So anyway, I may wind up with something to recommend for the goals and recommendations that I want to talk with the group about, but I'm not ready quite yet. So apologies, but still pending out there.
Okie dokie. Discussion of updates of the 2021 master plan.
I'm also a little behind. I was hoping to have mine by today, and I've had a just series of work and personal crises over the past week that have derailed me a little bit. So I am working on it. I'm sorry, and I hope to have something like I'm gonna just put some time in my calendar over the next couple of days to work on it a few hours every day, because otherwise it's not gonna happen. It's been an insane couple of weeks, so I'm sorry. But I will have it soon, and I owe Judith a call. Thank you, Judith, for reaching out.
Kristen, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, because I feel like some of the audio might be my problem. So Karen couldn't come tonight, but she's been kind of leading the charge on recreation, open space, and trails. Julie, you're not alone. Same exact boat. We did get some stuff in from rec. I actually called in help from Tim and Jen too. And then Karen really did a nice job of taking it and putting it all together in one chapter. So it's in pretty good shape. And so I told her the least I can do is come to the meeting, but we're getting there. I think there's a couple things that will be added to rec. There were some stats that I talked to Tim about adding, and then I was chatting a little bit with Karen today about a couple areas that we might enhance and rec just to kind of balance out with what she's done for conservation, but I think we're pretty close. And by we, honestly, she's done so much. So, but I just want to say, Julie, totally same boat, totally get it. It's a hectic time of year with
I
the,
know, it's a really tough time
Yeah.
of year for everyone who's.
Kristen, you
Well-
missed my comment. I'm in the same boat here, so.
yeah.
I did
You have
actually,
kids in school as well, Sam, is that your?
I did connect with Katura Martin, and she said she's working on getting me something. She was hoping for last week, which didn't happen. I pinged her again, so I'll continue to follow up with her.
I'll just add, like Karen's done a nice job. I think we're almost there.
Yeah. No, I think so. I think so on that one. Shall I can show you mine just because I put it in the folder just so that we have something to. Hang on a sec.
Judith, before you do that, so I guess in my mind, right now, we're going through the different chapters.
Yes,
And the ones that already got reviewed, what's the next steps with those? I'm asking that for everybody, because some of them have been reviewed by the group, probably, not
Yeah.
last meeting, but the meeting before. I plan on sharing that, like the one that Sarah and I did with housing. I just been procrastinating, I guess. I'm gonna share it with the Shopsy, for this coming meeting. But what else should I be doing?
I don't think right now, Tom, there's necessarily anything more to do. I think once we've got what we said was once we've got the first drafts, good robust drafts from everybody, and it sounds like we're going to have that in the next week or so. Then I think Julie and I volunteered to kind of do like a compare and contrast and a master edit process, so that at least then we've got a single document that I think we are going to have to end up going through probably in a fair amount of detail, and I think that's going to take. But I think if we can do that in person, in an in-person meeting, I think that will make it so much easier, because it's tough to review stuff and to watch everyone's reactions and take questions and things. So, but so I'm I think for if you feel that like you and Sarah, Tom, and Kristen and Karen, I think my 2 chapters are kind of at a point where I could fiddle a little bit more, but I'm not sure it really necessarily adds that much value at the moment until we see everything and we can get a sense of how do we bring it all together, which Julie and I, if we can meet in person as well, would be good. I mean,
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm not doing something I should be doing, I guess, is really the reason why I asked that.
Okay.
no, I don't think so. I mean, Sarah, maybe you can talk in a little bit about the data piece of it as well. But
Yeah, no, I think that's right. In terms of the sections that have already been written, I think that once they get kind of rolled into the master document, there'll probably be more evidence of where we need to fill in some narrative to kind of connect those sections. In
Yeah.
terms of the data updates, MAPC, unfortunately, kind of in the final hour, said that they were not able to provide data updates. However, I did reach out to several different vendors and did secure a vendor to do those data updates for us. Since the contract is kind of small, and we did have about 40 pieces of data collectively for everyone. What they're going to do is they're going to do half by the end of this month, and then hopefully, at the beginning of July, we'll recontract with them for the additional data sets. So.
are
Can I
they?
ask how much that was? I'm just curious for perspective.
Oh, so it's going to be $2,600 for 20 data sets, and then it'll be about the same for the next set.
Gonna get a
which sort of,
refund from Ralph?
what about, I'm sorry, what about Ralph?
Are we gonna get a refund from MAPC?
We are going to continue to hold an IOU with MAPC
Oh,
to
good.
do some sort of revision or assistance, you know, and maybe, I don't know, Judith, maybe we could approach him about aggregating the first, you know, run through of all the chapters. And again, I'm just sort of spitballing here, but he definitely does owe us a few hours of work. He just said at this time, the organization is really taxed. They have not returned to the office yet, so they're still very
Right.
kind of widespread, and they are also down several staff members.
Okay.
So they're just kind of having a hard time. You know, they have a whole TAP program that they're running right now, and, you know, trying to get their funding out. So it's unfortunately just a time of year that they
Sarah?
didn't have the capacity like they thought they would. You know, but again, the good news is, you know, Community Opportunities Group worked with us to write the HPP. You know, Tom can maybe even speak to some experience with them. You know, they were definitely very proficient, and you know, since it's just the data sets and not the narrative, it's definitely something that they can get done by the end of the month, so that we can plug those in and start to
Okay.
get the ball
Yeah.
rolling.
I concur with Sarah. They were extremely good. They did a very thorough job in the HPP.
A question for Sarah. Sarah,
Sure.
did you get input from all the chapters now in terms of the data? I know I'd
I
sent you a
did.
list of charts, so we've got a complete list, you think, for the
We
data
do.
stuff.
Yep.
Good.
We did,
So-
and so Sarah, Mimi, and I had a quick call and went through it. What we focused on was the data sets that needed external sources. There's probably some data sets that require internal sources. I think there were quite a lot in your
Yes, several in mine.
old chapter that we're going to have to, but you know, once we've got the data, it's yeah, we just have to pull the data and work out what we want.
Okay. I have a process comment to Tom's question earlier. I agree, Judith, with your summary earlier. I mean, it seems to me that one of the things that I would find very helpful in terms of the chapter I'm working on is once you can look at all the chapters, if you could then give me feedbacks, for example, to say, okay, you know, you didn't lay this out quite the same way that others did, so you need to go back and do a little restructuring, or your stuff is overlapping here with these other chapters, so
Yeah.
either skinny it down or remove it or do something else with it. So it's, to me, sort of a fit around the edges kind of issue that is going to be very helpful to get feedback for. So
Yeah,
new committee member, good.
for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
anyway, that to me
That's
sounds like.
I think, you know, I think that's what I was envisioning would be definitely a kind of an important outcome from the first pass. And then, yeah, then there might be some topics where we go, wow, you know, we need a bit more narrative in there, and who can help us. And that might be, you know, other people in town boards and commissions that can
Yep.
that can help.
Or if there are gaps, for example.
Yeah, there's gaps.
Right.
Sure, yeah. And Sarah, I like good job for holding Ralph's feet to the fire, and you know, maybe we just say to him, well, we've written the report, now you can put it into, like, you know, desktop publishing mode, because that's
Right, exactly. You know, I think that would be a good way to leverage, you know, that promise of that additional work that he owes us.
I'd like to get Ralph's feet in the fire, actually, but
That's right.
that's
Well,
another
yeah.
topic.
Well, it's that Heritage Day. I'm sure we can add a bonfire to it. But
Good.
That's right.
One of the things that, again, is on my list that I'm struggling with is on the facility stuff, how much to say about the current conversation with the schools relative to Woodward in terms of how many schools do we need, and if we, you know, do something with Woodward, that then creates an entire new ballgame relative to other facilities and a ripple effect. And I think I got to be careful not to get too much in there to get people too excited about it, because we're a long way from whatever the finish line is going to be on that, and it may not happen, actually. The school committee is certainly, I think, discussing it in good faith, and the capital planning committee is working it pretty hard. And so I think to leave it off entirely is probably not ideal. Maybe the right answer is to leave a placeholder for that, see what develops over the next couple of months here. And if there's more clarity on that, then have a place to put it in, as opposed to saying too much about it now and getting people unduly excited about something
Yeah.
that may not happen or may happen a different way. So that's sort of where I'm headed, unless others have strong opinion otherwise.
No?
I think the less said, the better, as
Yeah.
a general rule.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I could finish my chapter very quickly then.
You know, sometimes I found, you know, there was a couple of bits in my chapters where I didn't know the answer, so I just kind of made it up. But I made a note that I've made it up. Not complete fabrication, but just the assumption is that. And so
Right.
I found that's always a very good approach.
Which is good for this pass, certainly. Let's get stuff out
Yeah.
there that needs to be discussed and filled in.
I
So
added,
can you open up the sharing?
so I added
Yes,
a
I
little
can.
comment to your chapter, Judith. There was
Oh, good.
one little persnickety little thing.
Editorial comment.
Okay.
You should be all set.
Where am I? I think I'm here. Making prep.
There we go.
Can you see? Can you see me?
Mhm.
Yep.
So I just want to, I'll just show you my two chapters. They're in the today's folder. And again, I think this is a good example of what we can look at across all of the chapters in terms of narrative flow, but also kind of formatting. So this is the circulation and transportation chapter. Come on. Oh, that's way too small for Sam. Hang on a minute. And Tom.
Not just Sam.
She said Sam.
Is that okay? I'm at 100%. Yeah, I can make it a little bit bigger. I can maybe go to, I think I can do 110. There. Does that work for everyone?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So this is circulation transportation, also known as improving accessibility and connectivity. So I'd say this is probably 90%, maybe 95% of the way through. I really want to try and get a meeting with Karen Galligan, because there's some points in here where I've had to make some assumptions and I've got gaps. But so I have an introduction, a little placeholder for the vision forum and survey, which I want to add in at the end. I've done my changes and accomplishments. So we talk about the Southborough Main Street project. So
Hey, Judith,
yeah,
could I ask a question about the survey stuff?
yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it, but the Municipal Technology Committee is in process with a substantial survey about town services, programs, facilities, et cetera, that they actually have, at last count I heard, had close to 400 responses and increasing.
Is it still
Wow.
open, Sam?
Yes,
It's still open?
I think so.
That's the 30-minute survey?
There was a post on the blog about it. I don't have the link handy, but if you go back and do town survey on the My Southborough, I think you can find, or the Municipal Technology Committee website, I think has a link to it. But that's a very extensive survey, and maybe there's something in there that if you contact Matt Probst, and Will is on that committee, so Will could certainly, provide access there to see what their current results look like. That may be useful data in terms of a fairly broad-based view of a variety of topics here that we might be able to incorporate somehow. So
Sure.
I don't know. I don't remember all the things that are there, but it's
Yeah,
a very
sure.
well done survey and a lot of responses so far. So
Yeah.
worth looking at.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great. So I have a little section on the Main Street project, and you see anything that's in italics and bold is basically where I'm waiting for feedback, or I've got to put a bit more in. I have added in some info about the Route 9 corridor analysis and the smart growth plan. And this is one area where I just want to connect with Julie, because there was, I think, a link into the commercial development piece there, but I've, got the bones of that one. My formatting is horrible. I've got my little section on active organizations, and then summary of current conditions resources. So this is where I've got some placeholders for data. This is where we've asked for data to be updated.
But stop. It's no longer the EMC campus.
Oh, that's where my little comment was.
Dell,
So
Dell?
it's, yeah, they
Dell
haven't, yeah, Dell EMC
Technologies.
hasn't left. They're still in Hopkinton, and they never really developed that campus. They proposed it, so they didn't leave.
No.
It was
it's,
just never
Oh, wow.
developed.
It's a beautiful road that no cars are ever on.
Opposite the Cumberland Farms.
Yes,
yes.
Is that still there then?
yes. They had to
Oh.
build a road, I think. I'm not sure why, but it's
Okay,
blocked
so
off at both ends.
who left then? Did somebody leave?
No, Dell acquired EMC. People moved around, and it's not clear exactly where they're going with that, as I understand.
Oh,
Tom knows
okay.
better than I think.
So there may have been some Dell employees working down there, but not enough to have any impact.
Are you
on
talking about
traffic.
Coslin Drive area?
Yeah, that whole area.
Yeah,
So yes, they have left some of those. Those were originally Data General buildings.
Yeah.
Egan owned some of them.
Oh, okay.
So they left some of those buildings, but they didn't leave them all.
Okay, I will correct that. My bad.
Yeah, that big white one is still occupied. I thought you were talking about that big campus plan in between Flanders and Coslin, Crystal Pond.
Well, that too. That I think Coslin was part of that too, wasn't it?
I mean, the whole area remains a question mark. And
Yeah.
an important one, certainly, that would be great to know more about and work with.
So chances are they're not going to develop a campus there. That would be my prediction.
Particularly with COVID, people are shedding space generally, so hard to believe they would put a lot of money
Yeah.
in that.
Dell
Well-
shuttered probably 7. Some of them were rental, some of them were not in New England since COVID. Like they got rid of my building. Poof, gone.
Now you're
But I
working. in
did
the
get to
backyard,
steal this nifty chair.
so your new office.
Oops, I'm reviewing now. They let you take office furniture at your home office.
Hmm.
So it's quite nice.
Are you 100% remote now?
Yeah, I have no place to go.
Oh,
Oh,
I know.
Homeless.
I'm homeless. Yeah.
Appropriate for a Shopsy guy.
we can probably get you a nice deal on an affordable housing.
Oh, that's great. Makes you more empathetic.
That's right.
So I shouldn't be asking for that pool then?
Yeah.
Second priority.
Anyway, so moving on. So this is, I've just found some more data from Karina on road projects and intersections. So this needs to be just reviewed again, but this was a kind of a key section that will provide the hook for goal and recommendations over connecting the north and south. So,
Yeah, Judy, thank you for sending me that information on that intersection as well. I spoke with John Wood about it, and we're going to address it at our next meeting. So I appreciate that.
great. So then I've got a little bit on public transportation, bikes and sidewalks, mentioned that trail system stuff is in the open space. And then I've had some nice info on complete streets policy and plan, courtesy of Karina. And also I put in the references to the shared streets and spaces program. And then this is the section on individual accessibility that Bill and Warren helped me with. And then here's my goals and recommendations, a couple of themes, and then this is all the stuff that we've looked at before. So I think this is pretty similar to the format that Open Space and Rec have done.
Judith, question? One of the things that I have in my outline that I think I saw in one that was recommended at one point was a section on progress or activities since the 2008 master plan, a summary of what we've done since 2008 in the particular area. Is that in here? Did I miss it? Or is that not something that you've included? And not
Yeah.
saying we necessarily should, but I think.
Summary
it
of
would be-
changes and accomplishments.
Okay.
The
sorry.
main one on circulation transportation is really the Main Street project,
Okay.
and then complete street corridor analysis. And that's really it.
A question for Kat, have we not made some interesting progress in the trail network?
Yeah.
In the last
but
12
right,
years?
that-
She refers it back to the trails, which I think is a great approach here.
Okay.
So it's not in two places.
Okay, good.
yeah, because we had it in 2 places in 2008.
Mhm.
So bikes, sidewalks, and trails. The trail system is referred to in Open Space and Rec.
Okay. Thanks.
So that's circulation transportation. And then what I did, my other one was, no, that's not what you want to see.
You did a great job with that, Judith.
Good. Yep.
It's very, very easy to read, and there's not a lot of extra blah, blah, blah that was
Filler.
in the other.
Yeah.
It was very
Okay.
good.
So then this was the one that was so this is another, this was originally in 2008. This was natural, historical, and cultural resources. And when I went through it, there was definitely an overlap with Open Space and Rec around the natural resources. So there was almost the same narrative in 2 chapters. So what I did was I kind of negotiated with Karen to put the natural resources bits in Open Space. So what that then allows us to say is that we've now got a chapter on community, historical, and cultural resources. And with our banner is, develop an enhanced sense of community, which we said was a really key theme for us in 2020. But as I started writing this, what I decided was that it was really quite difficult to follow that same subheadings and then just come out with goals and recommendations at the end, because it's really 3 very discrete resource areas. So what I did is I turned it round slightly. Same thing, introduction, vision, and forum. And then I've got my 3 sections. So the first section is the downtown initiative. And then within the downtown, I've got what have we achieved since 2008, active organizations, current conditions and resources, and then goals and recommendations. So the content is still there, but it's like subheadings within each resource area, as opposed to saying everything in just those subheadings. And then the same for historical accomplishments, which we've done quite a lot. That was kind of quite nice to be able to put all of that in there. Active organizations, commission and the society, current conditions and resources. I've been able to add in the piece about the history walk. And this is an example where I've in here, the scenic byways, which in 2008 was referred to in historical, in this chapter, is now in circulation and transportation. So I've got a reference back to that. But here's our goals and recommendations. And then this is the section that I've expanded quite a lot since 2008. I've called it community and cultural resources. So not a huge amount of accomplishments, but I did get some nice info from Ryan about what they've done in the library. So I think that's kind of a good one to add in. And then I've got 2 areas of active organizations and resources. One is cultural, which is really just a few tweaks to what was in 2008. But then I've added in community resources, and I don't know, Sam, how much of this might overlap with yours, but we can take a look at that. Because I think that was where we said we wanted to make sure that we were, definitely looking across the town and giving a holistic view. So I've got, small paragraphs, and these are really just taken off the town website, just explaining what those services are. There's the library. We can link to their strategic plan. And then, just the narrative links into the goals and recommendations around the community gathering space. And there is teeny weeny little reference to Woodward School there. And then the other reference was around collaboration, communication between the town government and community, which is the hook for these recommendations we had here. So again, I my own thought is it works just as well this way. It was much harder to try and do, well, here's all the accomplishments and then break it into the 3 areas. It just seemed to flow better if I did it in the 3 bigger topic areas. So that's that one.
You may want to add the adoption of the adaptive reuse of historic buildings was adopted in 2017.
Oh, so that's different to the demolition bylaw, obviously.
Yeah,
What's it called?
it allows you more flexibility to do things that wouldn't otherwise be allowed in zoning with historic buildings if you
Okay, it's the adaptive.
if you maintain the outside.
What's it called? The adaptive.
Adaptive
reuse
reuse
of
of historic buildings.
When was the demolition delay bylaw enacted? That was since the last master plan too, wasn't it?
2015.
Yeah, that's in there. She has that
Yeah.
in there.
I've got that in there. Yeah.
I think the way it's organized makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
And again, more
That's great.
compact than the original version substantially, which is good news, I think, much easier.
Yeah, I think it makes it way easier to use.
Yeah. And it's interesting when I had a couple of occasions to look back at the 2008 plan, and when you realize if you were to take out the charts that are just a big lump of data and the photographs and the maps, you realize there's not that much narrative in there. So I feel good that we've got some good solid content here, and more importantly, really good robust recommendations and goals. So
I have a question that I've been struggling with as well that I'd like to at least raise for the group for discussion later. It seems to me there's an interesting question around trying to set priorities, at least at a high level, once all this stuff gets written down. Can we think about ways to say, if we as a group had resources to do things generally, are there things that jump out and say, here's where we ought to focus first, and these are lower priority items generally? And the source of that question is that we are in line to get several $million out of this American Rescue Plan Act for the town. And there's some limits on how we can use it. And one of the things that I hope the Board of Selectmen will dig into shortly here is trying to think about what we do with that money. But that money pales in comparison with other grant opportunities from that same act at the state and federal level. And then this bill that Congress is struggling with now in terms of infrastructure has got another at least $1 trillion for the country to do things. And then there's the American Families Plan that's behind that for $2 trillion proposed. that has a huge amount of money for a variety of things as well. So if we are so fortunate as to be able to get access to significant chunks of those resources going forward, what kind of things would we recommend that we focus on first, primarily, et cetera? And again, that would not be in concert with the 2008 version, which didn't really set many priorities, but I'm usually interested in trying to figure out how you guide people in a direction that makes sense. And I don't just setting some priorities.
Excuse me, Julie, can you mute? I think your feedback's coming from you.
From me?
He's already muted.
Oh, where's the feedback coming from?
I don't.
Could be my cat, so I'll mute you.
I think that was it.
Okay, whatever happened worked.
Okay. So anyway, I don't resist setting some priorities, but I think that's an opportunity for us to at least consider it and raise the question, do we want to make some recommendations in terms of at least high level? These are the most important things that the town needs to focus on over the next 5 years or whatever, when there may be funding available from various federal programs. So just food for thought. But, I think I see this as a once in a generation opportunity, frankly, in terms of federal money.
Sam, I'm sorry, feedback is kind of problematic, but I also heard a little bit of discussion about this at a Board of Selectmen meeting. Can you, I'm sorry if you just said this, but can you outline, like, again, what the parameters are and what that funding can be used for?
Okay, the American Rescue Plan is the one that is now passed, and that allocated money at 3 levels. One, to individual communities. Southborough has a direct allocation of $1 million out of that. And then Worcester County got 160 million or something, because Worcester County does not have functioning county government. That money got distributed to the communities in Worcester County. We get another $2 million in change from that allocation. We get half of that presumably now, and the other half in about 12 months. And that money can be used for a set of 4 things. One is public health services, typically related to COVID. Another one is broadband expansion. I can't remember the other 2 off the top of my head. But there's also another wrinkle in that if the town can demonstrate that it lost revenue over a specified period of time, you can use money from that bucket for a much broader set of things, such as road building, sidewalk building, and that kind of stuff. So we need to figure out what we can do with that money, assuming that we're going to at least get a fair hunk of it. And then that same act gave hundreds of millions of dollars to the state of Massachusetts, which is going to various departments to give grant money for particular purposes. And then the same act gave a bunch of money to the federal government, where you've got departments like energy and transportation and whoever who have money to give out in grants as well for a specified set of purposes. So there are 3 levels that we can potentially access there. And I think that it's going to be the Wild West out there, because there's a very limited knowledge about what you can do and can't do. Even the feds are coming out with periodic guidelines that say we still don't really know, and we'll issue more guidelines later on the stuff. So my theory is that get the money that we can get quickly, so somebody doesn't take it away from us, because now the governor and the legislature are arguing about whether this initial federal money should be allocated through the legislature, which was not the intent of the federal government. So I don't know how that's going to turn out. It's an ongoing discussion. So anyway, that's the first one. And then the infrastructure is the next one, which we don't know nearly as much about. And then the Families Act is the third one in the pipeline. So again, huge amount of money. I like it. It's sort of like the New Deal for FDR. I mean, a huge amount of money that there's not a lot of money, but we've got great flexibility for.
Are you getting feedback from my? Is there feedback? I'm gonna go off mute.
I think it's you, Julie.
Can you guys hear me okay or no?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna call in. Hold on.
I don't know.
My initial, it's obviously not a lot of information to learn. I'd be curious in 2 things, Sam, like what I think I heard one conversation of the Board of Selectmen in terms of this, just curious what the initial discussions are there in the Board of Selectmen about this. And then my initial gut reaction is that if this money's meant to, or at least partially help with COVID impacts, youth and family services definitely comes to mind, but
Yeah, that's a good one. Mental health, substance abuse, those kind of things. That's one of the 4 buckets, as a matter of fact. So that does.
I mean, as a parent of a child, I know so many more people who have gone to them
Yep.
that probably never would have gone before.
Yep.
So important, but
And they are aware of that. It's my understanding that Chelsea Malinowski is on point for us to help sort out all that stuff, but we have not had a formal discussion about it. Advisory committee is looking very carefully at it as well, as a matter of fact. So
okay.
goal is to understand what's there and to get access to what we reasonably can out of those resources. And again, I come back to the point to say we could come up with something that says that, the number one priority is water and sewer infrastructure along Route 9 or whatever it might be. And so helping set some direction from this group, I think, which is a pretty widely representative group, could be helpful in terms of focusing attention on resource allocation going forward. The other side of it is whatever we would recommend, somebody would probably disagree with, so it gets you into hot water. But
The other only thought I'll plant, just because I got to put my recreation hat on, is that we actually are thinking about the fact that certain outdoor sports things have become more important now in light of it. So just this week we had a meeting and we were talking about the Finn, the former skate park, and just for the summer, we're going to get a net in there because right now there's the only one court. And tennis now is becoming even more high demand, as is pickleball. So when I compare that to youth and family services, there's projects that we're talking about in light of the fact that there's increased demand for certain sports. So
Yep.
Could be a small piece of the puzzle there.
I think there's opportunity there. Julie put a comment in the chat that asking about grant money to hire grant administrators to help implement master plan priorities. And I think there's flexibility to do a lot of those kind of things. But again, we just don't know a whole lot about the details. I mean, certainly anything we can consider pandemic related, I think is a slam dunk for this stuff, but it gets more difficult the farther away. The other side of it is that the CARES Act flowed through the state. That money came to the state. The state audits the towns for how they're spending that money. The new act comes from the feds, and the state isn't auditing that money. The towns will have to document and demonstrate appropriate expenditures, should that be a question later on. So that's a simpler process than the current money that comes out of the CARES Act, which is a real plus for us, I think. Anyway, big question marks, huge opportunity. And the question for additional conversation at some point is, how do we deal with that? How much directivity do we want to add in terms of the master plan there?
So next up is the Metro Common 2050 draft for housing and mobility recommendations. MAPC, which is the regional planning group, is also doing a master plan, and they have put out these draft recommendations for their plan. And I was wondering if people had looked at them, wanted to offer any comment for the regional plan.
I've not had the chance to look at it, but I will.
Agreed. Oh, yeah, same.
I haven't looked at it. I've been looking at Complete Streets, which is took me all my time to get my head around that one.
Okay.
I don't know if someone saw that Julie's trying to rejoin. Looks like she might need to be let in.
Oh, yeah.
All righty.
It might be me that's causing some of this problem, you know, because my Wi-Fi keeps dropping.
We still have 0 attendees.
Can you guys hear me? Or no? Never mind.
Can hear you, Julie, but a big echo.
So we know where the broadband funds should go.
That's right. Well, broadband is actually interesting because in fact, this the new plan has money to pay people's broadband bills for certain income level people. So in fact, if there are people who can't afford broadband,
Mm-hmm.
pay their Comcast or Verizon or whatever broadband bills. And opportunity for Julie, by the way, it helps. There's money for small business grants. We could actually take some of this money and give grants or loans to small businesses who are having a hard time, who didn't qualify for Paycheck Protection or other previous programs. We got a lot of flexibility to do that if we choose to.
I'd be a huge advocate of that one.
Excuse me?
I'm just saying I'd be a huge advocate of that.
Yeah. So extraordinarily broad range of opportunities to use this money. And one of the things, for example, that we have places in town that don't have water service. That's a clear, allowable expense if we choose to spend some money on that out of this American Rescue Plan Act.
I don't think we have any attendees, so I don't think there's any public comment. Should we move on to minutes?
Bill had a question, I think.
Sam, is this, do you envision this discussion of monies as part of the establishment of priorities? Is that the way you would approach this?
Not necessarily. I would say I have no idea how the town, the selectmen, others are going to deal with using whatever funds are available through these federal programs. I mean, that's TBD here. But I think that the master plan potentially could contain some sort of a summary piece at the end after you look at all the recommendations or whatever, to say that something to the effect that given the likelihood of available federal funding for a wide range of programs, here are the top 3 priorities out of the master plan discussions that master plan would recommend that the town focuses on for implementation activity or something like that.
So this would then influence the Board of Selectmen? Is that the way you envision it?
Well, in a perfect world, but I look back at how the 2008 master plan influenced the Board of Selectmen, which I couldn't detect a lot of influence from that, but maybe there was some there, I don't know. But that would be the hope, yeah. I mean, I'd certainly use it to push different initiatives. And I think, for me at least, some set of priorities is helpful versus a broad range of here are the 25 or 50 things we might be able to do that would be good things to do. Because we're never going to have enough resources to do everything. You got to pick and choose. And this group, I think, has a lot of collective knowledge about the needs and the opportunities out there that I think would have meaningful input to that process. So that's what I was thinking about it.
Gotcha. Well, the only thing I was thinking of, as we establish priorities, sometimes this is what we really like to see, but it's very expensive and therefore its cost effectiveness is somewhat lower than others.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if that's the kind of discussion you wanted to have.
Yeah, that's fine. And again, we could articulate some of that in a summary to say, here's what we really think is important. And we didn't include all of this in the recommendations because we know that the town doesn't have the resource to do that. But in a world where there is potential federal assistance, or state assistance,
Gotcha.
these would be important to do. For example, one of the things I've always been eager to do is get some pedestrian bridges across Route 9. And in fact, the federal infrastructure stuff certainly sounds to me like it is aimed at this kind of stuff. And so that's a place that I think could be pretty exciting. And in fact, I just read a news story the other day that Natick put a pedestrian bridge over Route 30. There's some pictures of it in the newspaper. It looked pretty neat. And they said it cost $12 million or something. I don't know whether that cost Natick or the MassDOT.
Yeah, for the rail trail.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful one across Route 9 in Framingham.
At Framingham State there, yeah.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
There's a new one. There's a bike trail going when you pass the malls.
yep, that's Route 30, isn't it there?
No, that's Route 9.
Route 9? Oh, okay.
They're both, Route 30 and Route 9 both have a bridge.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
again, that to me, Bill, is a good example of some place where we probably aren't going to have the money to do it ourselves, but if you can get it in the package from the federal stuff, you clearly got to get MassDOT to be on board with it. But if they don't have to pay for it, that meets their standards, maybe you can get it done. I don't know. But again, that's one that to me is worth being on the radar.
Yeah. I mean, as a homeowner on the south side of town off of Parkerville, oh yeah, that's huge. But just Sam, to your point just before that, I like your angle here, that because that's one of the things when we started this and we were doing the recreation piece of it, and some of the things that we're putting in recreation are big, right? You know, like the idea of a shared facility for recreation and seniors, et cetera. And I do hope we get there. But that is also part of the reason why, at least from recreation standpoint, we didn't also put the pool in there, not because we
You
don't
know,
think
like Tom, I know.
it's aspirational, but if we
You
put
guys
that,
have like,
if we put that in there, then all of a sudden does the report lose credibility? So
Yeah.
so having something up front saying like, look, this is all the stuff that we aspire for and we want, but understanding it's all not going to be possible.
Mhm.
You know, these would be our top recommendations. I think is really, it just gives more substance to the report.
And maybe some sort of a tee-up here that says that under normal circumstances, these are the kinds of things that the master plan would recommend. But given the opportunity and uncertainty around the proposed federal programs, if there is opportunity to get access to significant federal dollars for things like infrastructure, ... then these are things that we would hope could be considered on a larger scale.
Right.
Some language like that.
Yep.
Footnote, including the Tom Marcoulier pool, memorial pool, Olympic size.
That's memorial because he's going to have to leave because he hasn't got a home anymore.
That's right. Or we could build a little apartment, caretaker apartment next to the pool.
We could build a pool house with the
Perfect.
pool, and then that's where he could live. That's perfect. Yeah.
thank you all for helping me.
If you can staff it, that solves half the problem.
Yeah, I'm a big pool fan too, actually. So anyway, so again, I think I'm just trying to leave options open for considering some of these things. I think we will know more in the next few months, probably before this whole thing is wrapped up, but better information at least, to be able to do a little late editing on some of these things as we learn more.
Yeah.
Minutes?
I have a suggested correction in the minutes.
Okay.
In line 150, Ms. Luttrell indicated that there is a 2.5 million item in the planning department budget for the MPC.
2.5 million?
Million?
It says 2,500K. It should be just $2,500.
Yes.
I was wondering how you got that budget through the advisory committee.
I didn't know we did.
And that was the only thing I had in there.
And you said line 151, Sam?
150, I think it was.
Okay. I'll send that to Kate. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor, roll call. Stivers,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Sines,
Yes.
Warren, Connolly,
Yes.
Mark Hillier,
Yes.
McKee,
Yes.
Lavalde,
Yes.
Latrell, yes. Okay. So the next discussion is about the meeting, the next meeting, which after June 15th, they have to be in person.
Mhm.
Not necessarily, Mimi.
Well,
That's
there's
what
a,
Mark Purple said.
there's a bill
Yeah.
pending, but the
Yeah.
chances of it going through before the 15th are
Slim and none.
I've
slim to
heard
none.
different opinions of that, but you're right. Currently, we should plan on in person.
I don't wanna.
There's a fair amount of pressure to extend the Zoom capability to some degree at least, but we can't count on that.
Right.
And then so the question is for the next meeting. So Judith, you envision the next step that you and Julie and Sarah will take all the chapters and start doing a initial run it
Yeah.
and edit?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if people can get chapters uploaded onto or just send them to Sarah, that's probably the easiest way, is to send them to Sarah. And then she can upload them onto the shared site and then we can get going on that.
So you're gonna do that before our next meeting?
Well, I'd like to have a go before the next meeting. I mean, we could just start with what we've got. I mean, we could start with, with housing, open space, community circulation. That's 4. We could get started on looking at that.
How many are we missing? 3 or 4?
Let me see. If we do, hang on a sec.
While Judith is looking, Mimi, it might be useful to try and reserve the townhouse hearing room for our next meeting if it's available.
Okay,
Because that one is the most capable, I think, in terms of combined Zoom and in person, if we can actually do that for the next one to leave us some flexibility. Otherwise, I guess we're at the senior center as before, but I think the electronic capability there is pretty limited.
Can I ask an awkward question, which I'm gonna have to deal with in my committee, which is smaller, but my concern is being in a room with unvaccinated people and then having to ask everybody, are you vaccinated or not? And having that be an awkward question for people. And some people don't want me to ask that question, but I'm not comfortable sitting in a room with unvaccinated people. And if we have visitors to the meeting, we have to ask them if they're vaccinated or just sit uncomfortable. Does anyone have an opinion on how we should conduct business or ensure that those of us who are not comfortable sitting in a room with unvaccinated people feel comfortable figuring that out before we do so?
Good
I
question.
would say social distance, mask wearing, just exactly as you would if in the middle of COVID. Hand sanitizer at the door, on the table.
so how did the selectmen conduct their last meeting?
We're all vaccinated.
Oh, and no one came?
Did you guys talk about that ahead of time? Like, did
Yeah.
someone ask or did you volunteer the information? Because there's that privacy thing that people are sensitive around.
Yeah.
Effectively, I was asked, but it's an interesting question. We ought to ask Mark about, what the guideline is for that, because we don't want.
I did.
And what did he say?
I don't think it's,
He said it is not inappropriate to ask your committee members or the people that are coming to your meeting if they are vaccinated. And then I think I'd have to look back at his email. Like if they're not vaccinated, obviously they have to be masked.
and socially distant. Yeah.
How do you, this is tricky, right? We're entering into that tricky time where I have everyone in my family now. My daughter just got her second vaccination, but my son's 10 and he's so obviously not, he just turned 10. He's obviously not vaccinated. And these variants are happening. And so we have always been on the more conservative side. I just think it's unreasonable to require it, to be honest with you. I'm not saying I wouldn't personally come. I don't know, because this is all new territory, but like we have children who are still unvaccinated and we have variants that are popping up over in Europe that, you know, who knows? We don't know a lot about. So
Yeah.
I think it's a little premature to require it personally.
To require vaccination?
No,
Meeting in person.
Meeting in person,
exactly.
yeah. And that's my hope, is that it remains an option.
Yeah, I think I actually can't believe that they wouldn't leave that option open, to be honest with you. That's disappointing.
It's mandatory after Tuesday coming up.
Yeah, it will be. Again, the House passed that bill, is my understanding. The Senate is now considering it. So I remain guardedly optimistic that they'll move quickly and get that done so we can have hybrid meetings at least. And if we do a hybrid meeting, then maybe we need to do it now, at least in the townhouse hearing room, because I think that's the only place that will support that. Although Jay Montijo is working to expand that capability, but I don't think he's got that together yet. So
If you did it like a hybrid, would everybody that's actually in the meeting room all have their own laptops? Kind of like
yeah,
Zoom?
you need, by the current rules, you need to have a quorum there, I think.
A physical quorum, really?
That's what they're trying to get around now.
But
Well, that's the current rules on remote
Yeah.
participation.
Right, well, I understood that, but I mean, it took them a couple weeks to pass the legislation to go fully remote. I can't imagine why they can't speed this up and just make it happen.
It is a simple bill, but you can't predict what the Senate's going to do.
Yeah. Thanks for the information.
But
to
again, I
Tom's
think
question though, I think that's a great point because we're actually talking about this in the workplace right now as we prepare for in September, some form of return to work. And the point being that if we can remain hybrid, folks in the conference room still also having laptops, because it's a bit of an equalizer in that everybody, you know, has that kind of same kind of perspective. So again, I guess that's 2 steps ahead of where we are right now, but something I would consider.
But you would probably only have one audio going, right? Because if you're all sitting in the same room with all the audio, you'll have that feedback.
Oh yeah, the echo.
So the way we've discussed it is we'll have one person with Teams audio going, or whatever audio you're using, and then the rest of us. Yeah.
And that's the way the selectmen were doing it, was with one audio going, occasional feedback, but it worked out reasonably well.
I thought it went really well. I watched that meeting and I thought that the hybrid model was really effective. And it's discouraging that next week, you know, all of that is off the table, and up into including some sort of broadcast. I mean, I understand that perhaps the legislation is saying that, you know, that two-way interaction is no longer appropriate, but, you know, the broadcasting has really been effective, I think, for, you know, accessibility for residents. And so the fact that that's just like hard stop is a little jarring to me personally.
Yeah.
And I review some of the meetings online. It's great.
Yeah, I made the case with Mark Purple, but I know it's not his decision. So yeah, take it up with our legislators. So everybody write your letters.
Well, it's interesting. There's been some communication on the mass planners listserv, and, you know, not every town is interpreting the legislation the way that Southborough is interpreting it, in terms of, you know, cutting off that hybrid model right away. There are definitely some towns that are at least making sure that those broadcasts are going out, you know, again, like the two-way communication is something that, you know, obviously is of concern to many communities in terms of like making sure that they're not violating open meeting. But in terms of broadcasting out, there are a lot of communities that are going to continue to do that.
Both
But in
broadcasting out
the
and taking-
interim time.
Well, taking input as well, Sarah, you could have the committee present and then have Zoom to allow citizens to observe and to participate.
And it seems like an accessibility issue because some people are immunocompromised and cannot get vaccinated. So then therefore they can't attend meeting, and then that breaks open meeting law. So I like that interpretation, Sarah, and I think we should run with it. But for the record, I spoke with the AG's office and we never really had to read that preamble the whole time, this whole time. They
Now
said,
you tell me?
yeah, I just found out. They said you didn't really have to read it. I was like, oh. So, you know, just saying.
Or double covered.
Can I just be clear? Are we saying that even if something passes, our town can't,
That's where it is. So we gotta go ask Charlie for hers.
our town can't override that or still provide the option to be hybrid?
If the legislation passes, that allows us to remain hybrid for a while.
Okay, and if it doesn't pass,
If it
we
doesn't pass,
absolutely can't.
the
As a town,
committee,
we don't have any-
if it doesn't pass, the committee has to be present, a quorum of the committee has to be present, but we could still have the meeting broadcast via Zoom, basically, and the public could plug in and comment, listen, etc. So technically, we could do that if we have the technical
And I'm
capability.
certain that there are committee members that would volunteer technical skills to lessen the burden on the town, because I know it has been an extra burden on our very small town with our small tech people. And a lot of people have stepped up and super grateful for all of them. I think, Sarah, you might be one of them. But, you know, some of us could step up and handle 2 committees or 3 to help the town, you know, to manage it. And that was what I had suggested.
Absolutely.
Because I understand the burden and not having the resources to move forward, but I would hope that our creative thinking that we could do something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, and I'd be fully willing to help facilitate, you know what I mean, ongoing, you know, some sort of hybrid model. Absolutely. I've learned a lot about it and, you know, I have happy to step up to the plate in that arena.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for entertaining the questions.
I think for now, we have a meeting room and let's hope for the best.
So the next question is, so the tentative next meeting date is 6:30. Is that too soon or will that work? Or,
It works for us at least.
Yeah,
so just go with that?
I mean, it's only 3 weeks away, but I think if we could keep that date, then that gives us a really kind of good focus to do.
Okay. And then the last thing is that everyone's term is up on 6:30. So is everybody here re-upping for what I hope will be a short year reappointment?
I hope so.
Do we have to tell you that, or is it?
Yeah.
assumed? Oh, we do. So can we do it here instead of an email?
Yes.
I'm re-upping.
Okay.
Yay.
You actually have
I'll re-up.
you have to let, I guess, Mark or somebody know. Selectmen will get a list of people who have requested to be reappointed.
But these get appointed from,
This is the
by the
planning
planning board.
Yeah, I asked Lori Esposito. She had only reached out to me on 2 levels, and I said, "Well, what about the planning committee?" And Mimi Luttrell is the boss, and she
Yep.
said, "Oh, that's appointed by the planning." board."
I forgot. So
Yeah.
that's planning board.
But you, Sam, get appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
Right. And the representative from the selectmen, yeah.
Yeah, but we don't appoint you, so that you,
And Lisa has also been appointed as representative from the Board of Selectmen, although she has not been attending the meeting, so.
I'm gonna stay on for rec.
okay. So does anyone not want to be reappointed? Because otherwise I'm reappointing you.
That's a better way to do it.
Now our-
Voluntold.
I haven't asked Conservation Commission, but I doubt very much anyone else would be volunteering.
And they,
Well, you're not going anywhere.
not optional.
Yeah, I don't care what conservation says.
Your original appointment was for life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's go for the duration,
That's right. Or life, whichever occurs first.
whichever occurs first, yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, good.
so we said I'd looked at which chapters. So we've got the drafts, we've got housing draft, we've got I think Gina's got a draft of resiliency, which is kind of linked in with Sam's anyway. Open space, we've got a draft. Circulation and transport, we've got a draft. Sam is working on here. Oh, we've got the draft from community. We've got the draft from land use. So it's really, Sam, it's all you really.
Oh, Michael, as usual. Good.
And Julie. So it's really just those two texts. So,
No pressure. Thanks.
but we can start.
Do we lose Miss Judith after we said she was appointed for life?
I think we did.
Outage. She's like, I'm out here.
That's right.
Wi-Fi is not stable in this part of it.
So land use, I have goals that I just pulled together from looking at the other chapters, but those will probably change once everything kind of
Yeah.
gets pulled
Yeah,
together.
and that's what we said. We kind of look at them across the themes.
Okay. All right, anything else?
No.
So do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I
Second.
second.
A second? Very
12
good.
seconds.
The last roll call, Stivers,
Maybe not.
Yes.
Latrell? Yes, oh, that's me.
Mimi, you need drink. Clearly need drink.
I need my coffee.
Signs?
Where's Latrell?
Yes.
Connolly,
Yes.
McKee, sorry,
Yes.
Markelier,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
LaVolt,
Yes.
Warren.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everybody. See
Thank
you
you.
the
Thanks, everyone.
30th in
Yeah.
some form.
Somewhere.